This is Sybert signing into Tiberian Dawn Remastered on the map Elevation on the left side as the tan Nod. This is JulzzZ, aka PZ, and on the right side also playing Nod, but blue, it's WarMachine. WarMachine and JulzzZ, both Australian fellows. JulzzZ, of course, much more familiar with him from the Red Alert 3 days. WarMachine is, I guess, just someone he plays with a decent amount, and, you know, also an Australian. Both with an MCV move, just a little bit north. Of course, this does give you easy access to all three Tiberium fields. Nice little early game advantage if you do that. Flamethrowers with a little bit of scouting. By the way, with replays, local replays now working, this was pulled off of the Game Replays replay section for Tib Dawn. So it is nice to have local replays. They have been working for a little while, but this is actually the first time I've actually casted a local replay. Apparently there are some problems if you rename them. I tried renaming this replay so that it was not just a bunch of garbledy-gook as a file name, and then it didn't show up. So, kind of annoying. There are like little leftover bugs like that. But at least local replays now work, which means there's a reason for the replay section. And also, you know, sending replays is a lot easier than just giving a bunch of details to try and search for. So that is nice. Nod mirror matchup. And from my understanding, JulzzZ does indeed prefer playing Nod. That's what I see him playing most of the time in games. I'm sure he does play GDI every now and again. WarMachine, I got nothing on, so I'm going to assume that he also likes playing Nod, but purely just based on the fact that he's playing Nod in this singular game here. And I believe this is the modern balance version, yep. So the cargo planes are popping in and out of existence there, so they actually are not affected. The build times are not actually affected by your placement on the map, which is certainly nice. Buggy spam for both players, and really aggressive on this northern base creep from both players as well, as they're trying to claim the northern Tiberium fields as well. Meanwhile, the southern half of the map is pretty much untouched. A little bit of a buggy fight. Good control there by JulzzZ, keeping his buggies alive for just a moment longer, but the reinforcements for WarMachine does mean that he wins that fight overall. Of course, Julzz's new reinforcements are going to swing things a little bit back into his favor. He might want to actually pull back that initial buggy, keep it a little further away from the front line so it doesn't get just picked off immediately. I think it's 5 refinery economy for WarMachine, and I suspect if we go over to the JulzzZ side of the map, things are going to look very similar to that indeed. Little bit of base creeping to the south going on for JulzzZ. Second airstrip also in the south. Just get that double airstrip production going on for WarMachine. JulzzZ continuing to stretch on further south. He's going to be able to claim these southern Tiberium fields relatively soon, and that will be sort of powering his late game economy as he starts to clean up these northern Tiberium fields. And the three kind of near your base, or I guess these three would be the ones near his base, going to start drying up relatively soon. So claiming the south is going to be a nice advantage for JulzzZ. At the same time, WarMachine going to be crawling down south himself, but with power plants this time. And JulzzZ does indeed get an eye on that. Pretty good scouting overall from JulzzZ. He's got pretty decent vision throughout the map. A little bit less so for WarMachine, a little bit less awareness of the general map for him. Still just mass buggy versus mass buggy. A couple of bikes worked in as well. At least for JulzzZ, I don't actually see any on the side of WarMachine. But no one really teching up, no one really going for anything else. No reason to mix in light tanks, they are determining. And also no infantry, although we did see a second hand of Nod get dropped down by WarMachine, but not really do anything with it. A couple of bikes and a couple of buggies over here on the right side of the map do get cleaned up from JulzzZ. I think his economy is probably a little bit better than WarMachine, so a couple of losses like that aren't necessarily the end of the world. And this is, of course, the stage of the game where things feel a little bit more slow because both players are very tapped out on resources. So their armies aren't necessarily going to be immediately replenished, although in this case, WarMachine should be able to preserve a lot of his units. He's going to try and pull back a little bit to the north here. JulzzZ kind of disengaging with the south half of his army, which may actually give WarMachine a bit of an advantage in the north as Julzz's reinforcements collapse in, and JulzzZ should be able to take this initial fight. Although I don't know if WarMachine pulls reinforcements up to the north, if JulzzZ will actually be able to continue on this pressure. JulzzZ, on the other hand, could get a Harvester kill or even a couple of refineries getting knocked out. WarMachine in the south, he decides not to go for an attack. He is going to pull his army up north, and he's going to try and defend against this area. He still will survive with at least one refinery here that he should be able to save, especially with the turret coming down here. He should be able to force JulzzZ back, so he hasn't totally lost out here. He does still have the one refinery up here in the north, and in the south, these refineries up and running is probably more important long-term into this game than this northern field. But JulzzZ may have actually just opened up a little opportunity for him to start harvesting this center field in the far north and go for some kind of economic play up there. Once again, buggy going to be moving in the south. JulzzZ getting what value he can and now going to be overwhelming the split-up forces of WarMachine. He's not actually responding and pulling all of his forces together, so he's going to be losing potentially some critical infrastructure here. Although right now, JulzzZ is actually just fighting with the army sort of toe-to-toe. He's going to go gun down the MCV, kind of jumping on top of that. WarMachine gets the surround on a group of these buggies and will be able to finish them off. It looks like the MCV will actually survive. An additional turret comes down from WarMachine, and JulzzZ a bit indecisive, attacking both the refinery and the army of WarMachine instead of focusing down the MCV. The result being the MCV survives, slowly ticking away back into that, away from that critical health, as WarMachine has held on, in part due to the indecisiveness of JulzzZ. And JulzzZ, I think, thinking that he could have it all in that moment, miscalculated just a little bit, and as a result, he got almost nothing for that army. He traded out decently against the army of WarMachine, and at the start of the fight, Julzz's army was bigger to begin with. So it's not necessarily an all-out loss for JulzzZ. At the same time, JulzzZ is actually, his economy has grown a little bit. He's sitting at 2.6k in the bank, so he can mass up a decent-sized army with his active economy and with his bank put together. He should actually be able to come back with a decent-sized buggy swarm to mount a defense against WarMachine. WarMachine collapsing in on the army in the north. Buggy trying to surround from both the north and the south. JulzzZ going to be forced to pull back to his turret. May actually be forced to drop a second turret here just to try and keep these forces off of his harvesters and off of his refineries. WarMachine eating away at some of the forces, but I don't know how much he's actually going to be able to push on further forward, as Julzz's reinforcements and the turrets may be enough to stand strong in this fight. Down in the south, WarMachine looking for another opportunity. Still not a lot of Harvester kills on either side in this match. Neither one of these players really able to secure a kill on a Harvester. And I mean, Harvesters have pretty long time to kill anyways, so it's not a big surprise that there haven't been many Harvester deaths in this game, considering that buggies do take a minute to chew through the health of a Harvester. JulzzZ in the north starting to transition his harvesters to that center field. At the same time, giving up a little bit of land here in the middle. WarMachine isn't necessarily going to be able to push too much further forward. A lot of those buggies on the front line very low on health, just a moment or two away from death. And mixing in a couple of turrets in the defense here, along with this buggy, trying to box in this Harvester. It is kind of working, and he will be able to secure a kill on one Harvester, securing this southern field in the center for himself. Julzz's economy feels like it's outstripping WarMachine's in almost every single way. Obelisk also down here just to add even more strength to the defense of JulzzZ. And WarMachine starting to take up some position here in the north. He's carving away at this Tiberium in the north with his own 2 or 3 harvesters. But JulzzZ is not going to let this harvester harassment go unanswered. I mean, look how long those buggies were attacking that harvester, and they only got it down to about a third health. They didn't actually have a very good chance of cleaning that up. A little bit of pathing around Julzz's forces are going to secure a couple of additional kills for JulzzZ. Meanwhile, WarMachine, again, his army is battered and bruised, but the same could be said for JulzzZ. JulzzZ leaving a pocket of buggy there in the south, just south of this engagement, and will actually be maybe taking a few extra losses because of that. Now gathering his forces together, he may actually be looking to hunt a couple of harvesters in the south. A little bit of a spat going on down here as forces from both WarMachine and JulzzZ staring at each other at the current moment, getting ready for a clash. JulzzZ making a dive on some kind of production or some kind of infrastructure of WarMachine, both here in the north and in the south. Base defenses already set up for WarMachine. Not necessarily going to be a lot that JulzzZ can really do. JulzzZ trying to hunt harvesters way up here in the north as this game getting progressively more and more chaotic. Narrowly able to escape. This one harvester gets saved by the reinforcements of WarMachine, only to be picked off there by the extra forces of JulzzZ. Repaying tit for tat in this case as WarMachine cleans up one of Julzz's harvesters there in the north. JulzzZ making a dive onto the power plants, trying to shut down the production and slow down WarMachine's reinforcements as well. But will he actually get enough to send WarMachine into low power mode? Maybe not, as WarMachine cleans up everything there that JulzzZ had. And that is most of the power plants of WarMachine. That should be cutting down his production times. But we'll have to see if JulzzZ is actually able to capitalize on this momentum that he's found for himself. Another harvester does go down, and a mobile rocket launcher is going to be able to get some good shots off there for JulzzZ. WarMachine unable to make any real paths forward in the south, unable to make any real headway against the forces of JulzzZ. And the other thing that WarMachine is missing is, of course, those Obelisks. And now that the SSM launchers are here for JulzzZ, Obelisks are going to be of somewhat lessened effectiveness. So, unfortunately for WarMachine, he's kind of past the point of having an easy defense with those. WarMachine going to dive on the SSMs, does get 2 of them, 3 of them almost for free there as he cleans up all of the artillery of JulzzZ with a dive with the majority of his army. This may have been a costly move, though, for WarMachine as he trades out the majority of his bike buggy, and at the end of the day, the one with the forces still on the map is JulzzZ. But down in the south, WarMachine may actually be winning this fight, especially if he takes it a little bit closer to these turrets so they can get a little bit more in on the action. He has overwhelming numbers anyways, and he is going to be able to push JulzzZ back. But again, like so many engagements that we see in this game, they don't necessarily have enough to push any further forward than pushing their opponent back. JulzzZ looking to be in a pretty strong position, both economically and, of course, with his army, as WarMachine is forced to sell off some critical infrastructure here. Well, not necessarily critical infrastructure, but forced to sell off infrastructure nonetheless. JulzzZ okay to trade with his 4K bank. Following this attack up, he can trade out buggy for buggy, bike for bike, civilian for civilian all day long. He's still got base defenses to fall back on, and he's cut down the army of WarMachine by enough that WarMachine can't really successfully attack. JulzzZ can rebuild. It may take him a minute, but he can rebuild. He can spend some of his bank. He's still got lots of active harvesters on the map, and I mean, he can just rebuild bit by bit, even rebuilding his SSM launchers as one of these glitching out color-wise. I don't know why that happens in both Tib Dawn and in Red Alert, but occasionally you will have a unit that's glitched out and it's the wrong color. Sometimes it happens in 1v1s, sometimes it happens in team games. That's just another one of those bugs that they unfortunately never ended up fixing. Now, Tib Dawn is also a game where we have seen some big base cells get transitioned into a win for one team. I think it's going to be hard to do against JulzzZ, but WarMachine is going to try it here. Big group of infantry there in the south, and it's just buggy mostly, actually just buggies and light tanks there in the north. He's going to make a run for it. WarMachine is diving on some harvesters, a curious choice there as JulzzZ closes in the south. He may not actually be able to win out with his somewhat battered forces here in the south once all the riflemen turn and attack. But in the north, JulzzZ is undoubtedly winning this engagement. May actually end up taking a little bit of friendly fire there from the SSMs, but overall, JulzzZ with the overwhelming victory of the army in the last minute or so here. And, well, at the current moment, WarMachine is technically going to be able to hold on as he cleans up the last of Julzz's forces there, but SSM launchers and buggies should be able to finish this off relatively easily. JulzzZ is waiting around. They actually may be typing to each other. Being a couple of friends, they may actually be typing messages to each other, kind of evaluating the game and digesting the match, how it went, the way it went, and maybe mistakes that were made, that sort of thing. No cash, no real production to speak of. WarMachine is going to make a last-ditch effort in a hilarious throwing away of his army. He's going to march up to the forces of JulzzZ, and JulzzZ goes for the nuke with the finish, and that will do it as he collapses in on the army of WarMachine and absolutely shreds everything. The SSM launcher for JulzzZ doing more damage to his own forces than WarMachine was actually able to. And that will do it for this game. Thank you all very much for watching. We can... where was the... There was no end screen. Normally there's like the little summary screen. Anyways, that will do it for this game. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this nod mirror in Tib Dawn Remastered. And this is Sybert, signing out.